Hello and welcome to Into Book Magic, a podcast that connects geek readers and writers in an open, lighthearted, and occasionally random environment. We're your friendly hosts, Janeen Ippolito and
H.L. Burke.
And continuing our monthly theme of families, we have a special guest with a sister-centric series of fairy tale retellings here to talk about siblings, dragons, and puppetry. Lea is the author of the Firethorn Chronicles, a series inspired by fairy tales and other classic stories. Homeschooling and writing take up most of her time, but she also enjoys directing a small puppet team at her church. Native of South Georgia, Lea currently lives in Nova Scotia, Canada, with her husband, their 2 boys, and 3 cats. Sadly, no dragons.
Aw, so sad. Hello, Lea.
Hi.
All right, so why don't we get right in with the first question? Since the first book in your series is based on the 12 dancing princesses, it has 12 princesses. Do you have any tips and tricks for dealing with such a large cast of characters?
I do, actually. I actually love making lists. So when I first started the series, I started by making a list of the 12 sisters. I use a combination of spreadsheets and Y-Writer, which is kind of like Scrivener, but without all the bells and whistles that kind of confuse me with Scrivener. So I have like a master list with names and basic descriptions of the princesses and all the characters. I even make lists of the secondary characters because I don't want to accidentally name somebody's, pet dragon after made from some other story. So yeah, the lists are the key. Although sometimes even with the lists, princesses' names or which order they, like poor Junia, she's one of the middle sisters. And I kind of forget about her. I kind of overlook her, which I feel really bad because a lot of the other characters overlook her too. I guess it fits. It's her character. She's kind of the quiet one. She's kind of, never getting into trouble and all of that. But yeah, definitely lists are big.
I think that's the curse of the middle child, at least according to the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, oh my goodness. It's like, life reflecting art there,
Exactly. Has nothing to do with my memory.
All right, now, your Firethorn Crown series are all inspired by fairy tales, which is awesome. But what about fairy tales draws you to them?
That's kind of like asking, what about chocolate makes it so yummy? I guess one of the things that makes me particularly like fairy tales is they just seem timeless. They seem kind of universal. You find them all over the world, and they can be understood by young children, adults, any age. They're versatile. They can be adapted into any genre. I don't think I've seen a fairy tale that hasn't been adapted in some form or other in all of the genres that I know about. Yeah, and then just the ability to sort of, transport you into this magical realm that's just so different from the ordinary world, but it's still recognizable at the same time.
You know what? You've covered a lot of great points there. Yeah, I have to say that. I love doing retellings of fairy tales. Mine tend to be like a lot further, so I don't tell anyone because they tend to just change them in too many ways. But yeah, the universal themes and everything, and how being able to tell those great stories, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I like to say that mine are inspired by, because I do make a lot of changes. And sometimes I wonder even if people can recognize what fairy tale maybe that I kind of cheated on book 2. I used A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare.
Yeah, that was Shakespeare, and that was
Shakespeare. Yeah, so it's a fairy tale. There's fairies in the play. So yeah, I like to say they're inspired by rather than retellings, but the same kind of idea.
Awesome. Lea, are there any particular fairy tales you're looking forward to covering in this series?
Definitely, yes. I'm currently working on book 4, which is inspired by Beauty and the Beast. It's probably the most difficult one that I've written so far, probably because it's one of my favorite fairy tales. I think Beauty and the Beast is probably like the top fairy tale for a lot of people, and I just want to do it justice. And I finally, I think, got the plot nailed down. But I also want to do, and I have some planned already, like definite. There's going to be one inspired by The Princess and the Pea.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be one inspired by The Boy Who Left Home to Find Out About the Shivers. which is also called Fear Not. It's not one of the more well-known fairy tales. There's one that's kind of an Aladdin type story. There's another one that's going to be inspired by the Snow Queen, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, of course. I have to do that one. Mm-hmm. And there might be a Rapunzel one in there. And each of these I actually have which sister is going to be the main character in each of these stories. But actually, the next one I'm working on is not even one of the princesses. It's the villain from book 1, yes. Who is very insistent that he gets his own story. Aww. And so his is actually inspired by The Little Mermaid.
Oh, wow.
And he's not going to be the main character. He's going to be one of the main characters, but it's going to be from the point of view of actually a non-princess character who's not related to the sisters at all. So I'm kind of veering off there a little bit, but
I'm okay with this. Yeah. I'm okay with this. Okay, so with your series centering on each sister in turn, how do you incorporate sibling dynamics? Was focusing on sisters an intentional choice, or just something that came out of the fairy tale you chose to start with?
Focusing on the sisters was definitely a matter of chance. I'd only intended to write one book, a single standalone story, not an entire 12-book series. But as I created the main character, Lily, her sisters just became such an important part of her character and, you know, who she was and how she interacted with them. And then as I sort of built them as well and their characters, and they just kind of took a life of their own, and it snowballed. And the ideas just sort of exploded, and I kept filling notebooks with all these ideas and all these branching stories. And I was just like, guys, be quiet. I can't do you all at once.
I think both me and Janeen have had that happen before.
I think most writers get that sort of, you know, slow down, my fingers won't keep up. But yeah, I mean, as far as sibling dynamics, I have one sister, and, you know, we get along pretty well, but, you know, you have your differences. You don't always see eye to eye. But I would say we're definitely, you know, best friends. But it's just like with any other characters in a story. They've got their times where they get along, and they got their times where they rub each other the wrong way. Maybe one sister gets along better with another one. They have their favorites, although they wouldn't admit it, of course. But yeah, just seeing how those personalities play against each other.
Awesome. I say that a lot. Okay, and speaking of awesome, according to your author biography, you direct a puppet theater, which I'm very curious about. Can you tell us how you got into that and how it influences your other creative endeavors?
It's a small group. I think the most I've ever had in a year was 12. And it's just young people in grades 6 through 12. And we have a lot of fun with it. I got into it myself the same way through a church group when I was about 15. And I just kind of loved the idea of performing where nobody could see me. And just sort of, you know, being able to just, you know, be creative in that theatrical sort of way, behind the scenes, and nobody staring at me. And yeah, I didn't like being the center of attention, but I could stick my hand up there in a puppet, sure, no problem. As far as influencing any of my other creative endeavors, I'm not sure that it does directly, but it is nice to have a break from the computer and the notebooks and trying to wrestle my ideas onto paper and make them do what I want, and do something that's more sort of 3D and hands-on and just having fun with kids and, you know, just letting loose and having a good time.
That sounds fantastic. So how many books do you have planned for your series? I've noticed that some sisters get their own stories while others sort of have to share.
Yeah, that wasn't planned either. I'd originally planned to have, well, one book, but then that snowballed. So I thought, okay, I'll give each sister their own book. But they don't seem to be going in order. They're not cooperating. I'm not going to force them to. But yeah, for book 2, I ended up incorporating the next sister in line along with her immediately younger sister, because that was an important part of her character, was that she takes care of her sisters, and I needed that in there. I needed her with one of her other sisters in there to show that sort of aspect of her personality. And I also didn't have a story for that third sister, and I still don't, but I don't think I'm done with her yet. I think she's going to get a story. I just haven't decided what it is yet. The next book, book 3, I did kind of skip another sister. She's one of the twins. Melantha is one of the twins, and I'm not ignoring her twin. I promise. She's going to have her own story too. She's actually my Princess and the Pea Girl. Yeah, so she's going to get her own story. But probably I'm going to have to be after Therius, the villain from book 1. Because he's insisting that he's next. He wants me to skip book 4 and just go right to his story, but I said no. I've already started this one. I got to finish it. I got to see it through, and then maybe book 5 you can have that one.
He sounds pretty.
So I may end up with 13 books, 14. I don't know. But yeah, I do plan on covering each sister with her own story, and they'll make cameos. They may make cameos with some of their other sisters. I know in book 4, Melantha appears right at the beginning, and then she has to run. So you see mainly the main sister for that story is Nayland. So yeah, but that's the plan. 12 books, 1 for each sister.
Yeah, I think Nayland's my favorite of the sisters that we've read so far, mainly because she has dragons.
Yeah,
but
she's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, speaking of dragons, the majority of your stories also do feature dragons, and I believe you've got a growing list of various sorts of dragons in your world. Do you have a favorite sort of dragon?
Favorites are hard. I don't really have a favorite, but if I were cornered, I'd have to say maybe the butterwing dragon, just because I publish under the name Butterwing Publishing. Mm-hmm. And they're just the cute little everyday dragons that can kind of be found almost anywhere in the kingdoms, digging for worms and bugs, kind of like the little birds you see out your window, and everybody sees them and knows them and may not know the name of them. But I'm working on the book 4 that I'm working on now. There is a little dragon I'm having fun with, because as you say, Nayland has dragons, and she has a little kind of dragon that's hanging around with her as a pet, and I let some of my readers help me name him. His name is Whist. And he's just a teeny tiny little thing, a little dark purple dragon, hanging around and doing his thing. And I'm having so much fun with it. I just want to, pull him out of the book and take him home. But obviously I can't do that.
Yeah, I have a couple dragons in my series. I'm like, that's my pet.
Okay, and as a follow-up, and I have to caveat that, personally, I think there's more than one awesome mythical creature, but this is the question I am to ask. So,
yes, somebody might be forcing her to do this one.
I feel that right now. I'm thinking I have all these other mythical creatures in my head that are kind of giving me this glare, and I'm like, it's all Heidi's fault. Okay,
always.
So, why are dragons theoretically the best mythical creature?
Okay, well, I'm not saying they're the best mythical creature, but if they were, one of the reasons would be they're just, they're epic, or not, whatever you want to make them. I mean, they're one of those creatures that an author can do anything with them. Mine aren't magical, but some are. Mine don't talk in this series. I have another series I'm working on where they do talk, and they can be big, they can be small, they can be flightless, they can be bearded, they can be toothless, friendly, fierce. You can slay them, you can ride them, you can fight alongside them. They're just, they're so different. And phoenixes are cool too, griffins, unicorns, brownies, pixies. I've got all kinds of creatures in the next series that I'm working on, because I kind of missed that. The series that the Firethorn Chronicles has the princesses, and it has dragons, and it has, sorcerers and stuff like that. But I kind of missed all the different fairy tale creatures, and so I've got another series I'm working on that just has an explosion of everything.
Yeah, you bring up a good point with the versatility of dragons, though. I think because they are a part of so many different cultures, and they don't exist in our world now, as far as we know. There's a lot of lead in what you can do with them and how you can interpret them that you may not be able to do as much with even a brownie or something, where it comes from a very distinctive part of the world. For dragons, they're sourcing from so many different places. You can kind of just have fun with them.
Yeah, exactly.
I just personally think they're like the cats of the mythical beast world, and that's what makes them.
Yeah, I can see that.
Of course, we know where Heidi stands in cats versus dragons. Sadly, the dragon.
I'm with her. I may have a Pinterest board called Cats and Dragons.
All right, Heidi, you ready for the random question?
The question of utter randomness? Yes.
Yeah.
So this time, with everything we've been talking about, it doesn't feel so random anymore.
Well, it just kind of happens though, so we're just gonna go with it.
Yeah, there's a theme developing in this interview, Leah. Leah, if you woke up tomorrow and realized you were now a dragon, what would you do first?
Oh gosh, what would I do first? Well, it depends on what kind of dragon I was, right? And kind of establish that. So let's say I was a big dragon that could fly. The first thing I would do would be to take my family down to see my other family down in Georgia for free. No airlines. And I could go whenever I wanted to. And hopefully as a dragon, the heat wouldn't bother me as much down in Georgia in the summer because it gets really hot down there. And then I could keep myself warm in the winter up in Nova Scotia. Really easy to light the fires. So yeah, that would be cool.
Just picture all these like kids, like everyone strapped down and riding all the way down to Georgia.
The one thing I didn't think about with this question is I said if you woke up as a dragon, which means your bedroom, I hope you have a very large one with a big door.
Back to that. Oh, my husband would be totally on the floor. The cats would be scared to death. I don't think I'd get out the door.
Just have to raise the roof.
Okay, Leah, so where can our listeners find you and your books online?
The best place to find me is on my website, which is just www.leadoue.com.
All right. And you have 3 books out so far in the Firethorn Chronicles with the 4th on its way.
Yes.
And, well, it was great having you on the show this week.
Thank you so much for having me.
And what are we doing next week or next month, Heidi?
Next month, we'll be diving into the ever-shifting swamp of sorrows that is marketing, with tips on how to keep it fun, how to find your voice as an author, and some of our favorite gimmicks that can really sell a series.
Awesome. Marketing, because we're like always doing that.
Yeah, it's our lot in life.
Yeah, pretty much. Sundays I take off and I hide from the world pretty much. Alrighty. Well, listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of Indie Book Magic. You can give us a big old shout out on our Facebook page or on our website or on SoundCloud or on iTunes. Let us know what you thought. Leave us a review. And for now, this is Janeen Ippolito and
H.L. Burke
signing off. Have a fantastic day.